finally got round to getting the Mini on the lift. Obviously we had other jobs to do before I could prioritise this one. And I've been desperate to get on with it because I'm really keen to book a track day and have some fun in it. I've been enjoying driving it around on the road and it's really good fun to drive. Again, it's not overpowered or anything like that, but it does need a bit of maintenance now. So we've got loads of jobs planned on this and I'm going to try as hard as I can to get them done really quickly. So we've pretty much got like a full front suspension overhaul to do. All the bushes are pretty much knackered. I want to do a supercharger service. There's like oil in both ends of the supercharger that you need to change. Because again, the car's done like 114,000 miles and it's probably never been done. Obviously we're going to do a full engine service. And the car is now pretty much not going to be used much as a road car anymore. It's kind of done its time for what I need it for anyway. So although I don't want to go crazy, I'm certainly not going to add any more power yet really. I know we might get a bit carried away in terms of the engine purely because I think the crank seal's leaking, the rear main is leaking. So that will mean engine and gearbox have to come out anyway. If we do that, might put some con rods and forged pistons in it, just in case we put a turbo on it in the future, just in case. Not that we're going to go crazy with power, but just in case we do it in the future. Don't want to have to take the engine out twice, obviously that would be silly. So kind of planning ahead a little bit. The primary job though is full suspension overhaul on it. That's what I want it to be nice and really tight to drive. And obviously it's going to need an exhaust manifold on it. And the catback exhaust, as we discussed in the last video, it doesn't really fit very well. It pretty much rattles and everything and it's super annoying. So we're going to try and sort that out. And hopefully that's a product that we will actually kind of develop and then sell as a product on our website. Never taken one of these apart before. I've never really done any work on a Mini. I painted a bumper once in college when I was 17, but that was a long time ago. So it's just going to be a case of getting it all stripped down now, front end off first, get all the fluids out of it, wheels off, and then all the kind of running gear off, and then potentially pull the engine out. So yeah, time to get cracking. Right, subframe's off. It wasn't too bad. There's a few bolts that just didn't want to come free. Couldn't get the hub nuts off, which was a bit annoying, so I had to take the drive shafts off with the subframe. Couldn't get the ball joints out, so had to leave the hubs on the lower arms. Couldn't get the lower arms off because obviously you can't get the lower arms off with the subframe on. So it all had to come off in one big lump, which is, it's not the end of the world. It's a bit easier to kind of work on it on the floor anyway. We are fairly time limited in terms of kind of getting this back on the car and getting the car rolling again, because I do need the lift at some point in the not too distant future. But that's a good starting point. We can get it all cleaned up now. We can get these lower arm bushes changed. We're going to go for changing the anti-roll bar bushes at the same time as well. New ball joints all round. But for now, we're going to leave discs, pads, everything like that. All the kind of stock running gear that we can easily change after fact. We'll leave all that. A few new nuts and bolts and just generally give it all a good clean up. Obviously, because the engine's been leaking, there's loads of oil, which is, collected crap. It's a good rust preventative, but other than that, it just looks a mess. So the next thing to determine is what we're going to do with the engine. Again, the engine does leak quite a lot. Now that the subframe's off, we can have a good look under there and see where we think it's leaking from, try and investigate a little bit. I think the engine probably is going to end up coming out, which I don't really want to do, but it seems, now is the time to do it. Now that you kind of got all the subframe off anyway, you've done half a job. But as long as I can get the car rolling, so if we take the engine out, as long as we can get the running gear and all the subframe back on, we can put the engine back in at a later date then, depending on what we do with the engine, if we decide to, put some different internals in it or not. So yeah, just a case of figuring out where this oil leak's coming from now. There are kind of 2 or 3 common leaks on the back. There's the oil filter housing, the oil cooler, which leaks. That's a bit of a common one. But yeah, I do think we have got a crank seal that's gone. So that's going to be what gets the engine out. So yeah, just a case of investigating now, really. So you join us a day later. I've got the sump off because I knew the engine we had a little bit of an incident with low oil. Got myself to blame. I'm not good at car maintenance. And so I knew the engine probably wasn't great, but that's okay. You know, it's going to be a limited mileage car, and at some point I was kind of planning to do an engine build with it anyway, if we kept the car that long, and it seems like we probably will. But the main reason I wanted to take the sump off because I wanted to check if it was the crank seal that was leaking or not. That actually looks good. I can't see any oil behind the flywheel or anything like that. Nothing looks like it's been coming down. It's nice and dry up there, so that's good really. But what we have found in the sump is lots of bits of plastic, which is probably just timing chain guide. It could be from if it's been changed in the past, some bits have broken or what have you, you know, and it make their way into the sump, and that's kind of okay. You know, we can just clean all that out. But what we have got is some big pieces of cast aluminium, and it looks like the timing chain has actually been scraping around them, because this goes underneath the timing chain. It's like a part of the shroud for the timing chain pulley off the crank. I'm not even sure what the part is really, but it's like it just goes around the actual timing chain pulley. It's like part of the, I mean, it's not the end of the engine block, because this part of the this girdle part is separate, but it does go up past the girdle as well. It's part of like the end case of the engine. I haven't been able to actually find what it is as a spare part. I mean, I'm sure it'll be available, but I mean, the engine runs fine without it. It's just that has kind of had some contact with the timing chain, maybe because the timing chain was loose. It's also destroyed part of the guide and broken this off. I'm not sure if that's common on these engines, but it's definitely not what you want hanging around in the engine. And there's also some more pieces up there that I can see that are actually stuck against the timing chain. I did talk about taking the engine out. I didn't really want to, because the more bits of the car you take off, the longer it's going to take to get it back on the road again. But I think at this point, we'd probably be silly not to. We've at least got to take a look at the timing chain side of things. I think I can get most of that off with the engine in situ, so I'll do that. I'll probably continue to strip it down a bit more, just take some parts off the side of the engine and see where we can get to. But yeah, I think at this point it's looking like we'll probably end up having to take it out anyway. Which, you know, at least we can do it once and do it right while the subframe's off, but yeah. So yeah, I'll just take some more bits off and see where we get to, I guess. I think what's going to stop us is the crank damper. Hopefully I've got enough power in my gun to get that off, but we'll see.